All right, what is going on, everybody? I'm Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram. Link is in the box below. Week number 2 of the 2024 NFL season for Pick'em is underway. Usually week 1, I usually don't do well in week 1, as it is the toughest week to pick, in my opinion, because you never know what's going to happen. But unlike previous years, I actually had a pretty solid week 1. I went 11-5 in week 1. Really, the only one that I got wrong was my upset and a freak occurrence happening with the Patriots and the Bengals. Other than that, I was pretty confident with all my other picks. So I really don't feel ashamed with that record at all. 11-5, just a really solid week. And just looking to have another strong start. My division is loaded in pick'em, so just need to have some more solid weeks and keep this up. But yeah, these are my week 2 picks. Let's not waste any more time and let's get it on. So kicking off week 2, right off the bat, we got the Thursday night game and my personal rivalry of the week, as it is the Buffalo Bills heading on down to South Beach to take on the Dolphins. So both these teams are 1-0, but neither team played perfect last Sunday, as the Bills had a thrilling come-from-behind win against the Cardinals by a final of 34-28. So sure, Buffalo came back to beat Arizona, and I do applaud Josh Allen for that great effort. 4 total touchdowns, including the pretty much the game winner. He had that leaping touchdown against Arizona. But I'll be honest, the Bills, they really didn't look all that good, and they also have a laundry list of injuries, mainly in the secondary, and a couple guys who are questionable. So really, yeah, the Bills are 1-0, but I really don't know if they're fully loaded going into this game. This has kind of been the norm for Buffalo for the past couple of years. They get off to a really hot start, then they kind of simmer down a little bit, and it's starting to kind of look like that again for the Bills, but I really don't know about it this time. Then you got the Miami Dolphins. They're 1-0. They came from behind to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars last Sunday. A game in which Tyreek Hill got detained and was in handcuffs before the game began. I'm not going to sit down here and get into that, but that's just all I know. I know a couple of others were involved in it, but that's really all I know about it. I'm not going to go further into it because I really don't care about it. But Miami's 1-0. They also didn't really look all that great either. I mean, they shut down Jacksonville pretty much when the Jaguars put them in that deficit, but that 80-yard touchdown reception by Tyreek Hill and that celebration that he had in the end zone gave all the momentum back to Miami. A couple of Jacksonville misuses as well. So what I have to say about this is that the Bills in the Josh Allen era have owned the Dolphins. That's really all I got to say about it right there. I think Buffalo has won 11 out of the last 12 or something like that against the Dolphins. But here's the thing. I think Miami is at a big advantage here. The reason is, yes, it's a short week for both teams, but the Bills are the ones that are traveling down to Miami to play the Dolphins. The Dolphins had their game at home. And even if they had that game in Jacksonville and they had this Thursday night game, it's not like it's not like the Dolphins got to leave the state. It's not like they got to leave Florida. So those are 2 really big advantages right there for the Dolphins. And I think Miami could really use that to their advantage in this game right here. So, yeah, man, this one was really tough for me to decide. And typically, when I'm unsure of who to pick, I go home team. And I think that's what I'm going to do right here. I am going to go with the Miami Dolphins to get over that hump and get the job done over the Buffalo Bills. I think the Dolphins will finally get the job done over Josh Allen here. I think the Bills are really undermanned here going into this game and not looking good against Arizona. They get in a deficit like that against the Dolphins, it's not going to be as easy. The Dolphins are a little undermanned too, but their players are questionable to play. So I'm going to go with Miami to get the job done over Buffalo Thursday night. Then we got the Sunday slate of games. And first up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. And right off the bat, I'm telling you right now, the Ravens are going to be really angry going into this one because they lost that heartbreaking game to the Chiefs to open up the season, where on back-to-back plays, Lamar Jackson missed Rashad Bateman, who was wide open on that route in the end zone. And then he missed Zay Flowers by like a good 5 feet or so on that game-winning touchdown pass, or that would have been it. Then he found Isaiah Likely in the back of the end zone, and Likely caught it until his toe was out of bounds on the white line in the final seconds, and that decided the game right there. The Ravens offensively did pretty well, but it just wasn't enough as the defense and the O-line, oh my man, the O-line just penalty after penalty in that game. Not that I'm complaining about it because I personally love it. But yeah, the Ravens, they shot themselves in the foot so many times last Thursday. The Raiders, they lost to the Chargers and a very questionable decision by Antonio Pierce, punting on 4th and 1 on the plus side of the field when they were only down by 6 points, and there was still a significant amount of time to go in regulation, and that pretty much cost them the game right there. Plus, former Raven J.K. Dobbins had a big game in that game as well. So I really don't know how much of that is strictly on Antonio Pierce. Regardless of what the case is, I'm going to go with the Ravens to get the job done here over the Raiders, simply because of this. If you know me, you know I say this all the time. The Ravens last played Thursday, and they got 10 days rest. So they are very fully rested for this game, and I think that's just the biggest beneficiary for them going into this game here. So I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens to get the job done over the Raiders. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns heading on down to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. So both teams are coming in 0-1, two different kinds of 0-1s going into this one. The Browns got absolutely demolished at home by the Dallas Cowboys, a game in which the Cowboys defense just stood up, smacked the Browns all around. They did to the Browns what I thought the Browns would do to them, basically. Deshaun Watson played very poorly once again, 2 interceptions for him. Browns just were sputtering all day offensively. Cowboys just flat out dominated. Dak Prescott played with some fire because he got that deal before the game pretty much. They got a special teams touchdown. It was just a great day for the Dallas Cowboys. So the Browns are coming in just banged up at 0-1. Then you got Jacksonville, who's also 0-1. And the Jags, they let a game get away from them. They choked big time against the Dolphins. They had the game won, and then that Travis Etienne fumble at the goal line and then going for it on 4th down. I mean, that just gave the game away for the Jags, and they just felt like they should have had that game. Jacksonville's just been ice cold ever since the ending of last season. And this is why I keep saying I'm just not sold on the Cleveland Browns. No matter who they have at quarterback, no matter what their defense is, I'm just not sold on them. They're not a legit contender to me. I mean, at best, they're a divisional round team. I'm just not sold on the Cleveland Browns. They're just too reliant on their defense. They're too reliant on Nick Chubb when he's healthy. And it's just not a formula for a successful team. And plus, Deshaun Watson has just played so poorly when he's been able to play. Jacksonville, I still think they're talented enough to be competitive, but it all goes down to how they execute plays. And for this reason, I'm going to go Jacksonville to get the job done over Cleveland here, simply because the Jags, I felt like that they just let that one get away, as I said, while the Browns are reeling from just a really ugly defeat. And sure, I mean, they could definitely redeem themselves, but I really don't know if it's going to be this week. So I'm going to go Jacksonville to get the job done over Cleveland. Then we got the New York Jets going to Nashville to play the Titans, as the Jets, they're another team. This is kind of similar to the Browns and Jags. You got two 0-1 teams, and one of which features the Jets at 0-1. They got destroyed on Monday Night Football by the 49ers, game in which the Jets just couldn't stop the Niners' run game, and they got pretty much just bullied all night long. Despite that, Aaron Rodgers, I don't think it's all his fault. It was just the defense and just everything letting him down once again, as it normally does for him. So the Jets are 0-1. Then you got the Titans, who are also 0-1, but like the Jags, they probably should have won that game against the Chicago Bears. You take a look at that Titans-Bears game and you see what Caleb Williams did. It's like, okay, Tennessee probably won. No, they didn't. Caleb Williams didn't really do anything aside from the two-point conversion. You know, the Bears defense shut them down after Tennessee had a 17-0 lead. And despite Tony Pollard having a good game, and despite what the Titans did, they just were just stuck after they had that lead and couldn't, build upon it. So it's a battle of two teams that are really high on their defense and their run game. And really, if either of these teams fall to 0-2, they're in big trouble for the rest of the season. So again, it's a matchup of I really don't know who to go with. So I'm actually going to go with the Titans on this one. Again, it's just the Jets stay on the road. The Titans head back home. Tennessee had that game won, and they let it get away from them. The Jets were never really in that game against the 49ers. I mean, I'm not going to sit down here and say that, the Jets are cooked right now and their season's over with, but I'll say this, even though I'm not sold on the Jets, I'll say this, the Jets fall to 0-2, and if they miss the playoffs again, there's going to be some conversations out in New York and New Jersey, man. So I'm going to go Tennessee to improve to 1-1 and put the Jets in at 0-2. And speaking of the 49ers, next up, we got the 49ers at the Vikings. This one is in Minneapolis. And to keep it short and concise, I am going to go with the San Francisco 49ers to get the job done over Minnesota. This was one of my candidates for being lock of the week, actually, but I have another one in mind for that, and you'll see in just a little bit. The Niners dominated the Jets, as I said, even though CMC was listed as inactive for that game. Jordan Mason had a phenomenal game on the ground for the 49ers, and it looks like they didn't even miss CMC. So, yeah, I mean, the 49ers, they just really didn't miss a beat at all. They had their defensive players healthy again. Ufunga makes all the difference in the world. The Niners are still just a fully well-oiled machine, man, despite the losses that they had in the offseason. And Minnesota, they clobbered the Giants, sure. Sam Darnold had a nice game. The defense had a pick six on Daniel Jones, one of the most obvious pick sixes you'll ever see. But the Giants are just a really bad team. And Minnesota, I'm still not sold on them yet. I'm going to go with the 49ers to get the job done handily here over the Vikings. Then we got the Chargers and the Panthers. This one is in Charlotte. And again, keeping it short, concise, to the point, Chargers are my lock of the week right here. The Chargers beat up on the Raiders in Jim Harbaugh's return to the NFL. They are 1-0. As, just like I said, they just beat up on them, and the Raiders really just had no answer. The Chargers are very run heavy in that game, with all the weapons that Justin Herbert, or lack thereof, that Justin Herbert had. And I'm saying this, if the Chargers go run heavy again, it's just going to be another miserable day for Carolina because they got shredded by Alvin Kamara all day against the Saints. And the way the Chargers did that against the Raiders, I literally have no doubt that they will do that to the Panthers. Carolina, once again, looking like the worst team in the NFL. I'm going to go with the Chargers. Easy dub here over the Panthers. Then we got the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. This one is in Foxborough. Interesting matchup right here. Battle of two 1-0 teams as the Seahawks got the job done over the Broncos 26-20. That score is not indicative to how that game went. That was not really a 6-point game. The Seahawks defense made life a living hell for Bo Nix in his NFL debut. They should have picked off Bo Nix about 4 or 5 times in that game. But Seattle's defense, yeah, 200. They allowed 231 yards, but they really put the clamp down on Bo Nix when it mattered most. And the Seahawks did enough on offense to win. Seattle should have won that game by double digits easily. And then you look at the Patriots. They had the upset of the week. They went into Cincinnati in Gerard Mayo's coaching debut, and Jacoby Brissett did it to the Bengals again. They got the job done over Cincinnati with the defense that they had. And New England is feeling good about themselves right now. If you're a Patriots fan, you should feel good about yourself right now. You're 1-0 going into the home opener against Seattle. But I chop that down to more as just an emotional win for the Patriots right there. I really don't know if I really buy them right now because the Bengals over the last couple of seasons has gotten off to slow starts, and then they picked it up as the weeks went on. I just really think Seattle's just the better team. In New England, they caught the Bengals when they're pretty much the most vulnerable at the season. So, tough call here, but I'm going to go with the Seahawks, actually, to get the job done over the Patriots. I don't see a lot of points being put on the board for this game. I think it's going to be a defensive game because the Seahawks, their defense is very up and down. Like, when their defense is good, it looks like the Legion of Boom 2.0. But when their defense is off, they're really bad. But I really don't think they have to worry about that because the Patriots don't have a ton of firepower on offense and vice versa. The Seahawks, they're definitely capable of putting points on the board, but with the way that New England played defensively, I think that they can hold their own a bit against the Seahawks, but I'm going to go Seattle to get the job done over the Pats here. Then we got the Saints at the Cowboys. This one is in Dallas as the Saints destroyed the Panthers. What else is new? 47-10. Alvin Kamara, huge day against the Panthers. But again, it's the Panthers. They're the worst team in the NFL, in my opinion. And then you take a look at the Dallas Cowboys. They went into Cleveland and they clobbered the Browns 33-17. Defense bullied Cleveland all day. Deshaun Watson got picked off twice. Cowboys had a special teams touchdown. And this is just going to be a really big challenge for the Saints here. I mean, I'm not saying the Saints can't win this game, but if you were to ask me in a vacuum who I trust more between the Saints offense and the Cowboys defense, it's Dallas's defense all day. I'm going with the Cowboys here to improve to 2-0. Again, not saying the Saints can't make it a good game because I think they can. I just think in the end, I trust Dallas a little bit more because they are a better defensive team and they have more firepower on offense than the Saints do. I think the Cowboys have that kind of defense that can just limit the Saints as far as their attack goes. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys to get the job done over the Saints. Then we got the New York Giants heading on down to D.C. to play the Washington Redskins. I cannot call that team the Commanders. I'm sorry, I'm calling them the Redskins. If it offends you, oh well. Anyway, Giants and Washington down in D.C. So we all know the story with the Giants. Daniel Jones 2 laughable interceptions against Minnesota. One of them threw it right to Andrew Van Ginkel, ran it in for a score. Then he threw another one in the end zone. And the Boo Birds rained down in New Jersey on Daniel Jones, as I don't blame them one bit. If I was a Giants fan, I'd be sick and tired of Daniel Jones as well. But the Giants, they're off to another hideous start at 0-1. And Washington, on the other hand, they got beat up. They got beat up by Tampa Bay 37-20. However, I will say Jaden Daniels looks solid in his NFL debut. So at least Washington has that going for them. And I forgot to mention, this is actually my toilet bowl of the week. So it's just the least intriguing matchup and the least interesting matchup of the week, in my opinion. That's why it's my toilet bowl. These two have been duking it out for the basement in the NFC East for years now. So I really don't see that being I really don't see much change going on right here. Again, this is a battle of two teams that if either of them start 0-2, they're in deep trouble. However, here's my deciding factor right here. It doesn't matter how bad the Giants are. Daniel Jones, if there's one team that I can expect Daniel Jones to have a good game against, it's Washington. Washington's secondary is terrible. Baker Mayfield went off on Washington in week 1. And Washington's just never really had a response for Daniel Jones at the same time. I think the only time that Daniel Jones has lost to Washington was because Washington missed a field goal, but at the last second, Dexter Lawrence jumped off sides, and that gave Washington another chance, and they hit the retry. So, yeah, the Giants and Daniel Jones just have Washington's number. So, not only is this my toilet bowl, but I'm going to make this my upset again. I'm going to give the Giants one last chance because sandwiched in with this game and their second game against Washington later in the season, the Giants have a brutal stretch after this game. So the Giants need to win this game real badly if they're to be taken seriously at all. There's questions being, asked about Brian Daboll and, within the Giants fans and, deservedly so. I don't think he called a good game at all offensively, so yeah, the Giants really need this one. This may be the last time for quite a while, if not the rest of the season, that I pick the Giants. But I'm going to go with them to be my upset this week just because, they always give Washington a hard time. Again, it may not be much of an upset, but to me, if you're favored to win a game and you lose, I'm calling that an upset. So I'm going to go with the Giants here. Then we got quite a transition going from the toilet bowl to my personal game of the week. A rematch of the NFC divisional round between the Tampa Bay Bucs and the Detroit Lions going at it in Ford Field. As I just mentioned, the Bucs beat the Redskins 37-20. Baker Mayfield, great day, and he continues to make Browns fans eat a huge bag of shit, and I love to see it, man. So Baker Mayfield is just on fire for Tampa Bay right now as he's playing like he really earned that dough for them, and he is just loving every single minute just being the guy down there in Tampa Bay. The Lions, they are picking up right where they left off. I mean, they had the Rams down 17-3, and it looked like Detroit would run away with that game, but the Rams fought back, and they actually took the lead against the Lions at one point on Sunday night. But the Lions, if there's one thing that they always do under Dan Campbell, it's that they just claw their way back up, and they just roar like the mighty Mufasa from The Lion King. I had to put that in there given the circumstances. I just really needed to do that right now because we're all feeling like Simba right now. And we're all feeling like Luke Skywalker at Darth Vader's memorial in Return of the Jedi. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. So, yeah, I mean, it's a battle of two really good teams going at it right here. Two high-octane offenses. But my deciding factor right here is this. When the Lions are at home, they're just on fire when it comes to offense at home for them. They score on average over 32 points per game at home. And with a defense like Tampa Bay that they pretty much just gutted in the offseason, and they allowed a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels to have a respectable game against them. Now going up against that Lions offense that just points and yards on the board at will, it's going to be a long day defensively for Tampa Bay. The Lions defensively, I think, got better, but again, it's just going to be a tall order because the Bucs, they're another team that puts points on the board and puts yards on the board. So again, that's why this is my game of the week. I think this is just going to be a great game altogether, and it's just going to be a treat to see. In the end, I'm going to say the Detroit Lions improved to 2-0, and they get the job done once again over the Tampa Bay Bucs. I didn't take a look at the week 3 schedule yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions head to San Francisco week 3 because it looks like that the Lions are playing the teams they played in the playoffs to start off the year. So again, I didn't look at the week 3 schedule yet, but I'm willing to bet that the Lions go to San Francisco in week 3. But regardless, I'm going to go with the Lions to get the job done in a thrilling game over Tampa Bay. Then we got the Indianapolis Colts and the Green Bay Packers. This one is in Lambeau. This had potential to be a great game as well, except for one thing. Friday night in Brazil, Jordan Love had an MCL sprain against the Eagles, and the worst case scenario for him is that he can't play for the rest of the season, but they anticipate him to miss about 3 to 4 weeks. So the Packers, they're in trouble if they can't get anything going offensively with it looks like Malik Willis is going to be their guy for right now. And I say that this had potential to be a great game because you had Jordan Love going at it with Green Bay, who really turned it around in the second half of last season, and he demolished the Cowboys in the playoffs. And a lot of people are high on Jordan Love to have a great year for Green Bay. And then you got Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. He missed the majority of last year, but he came back last week in week 1, and he looked flawless against the Texans. He had a great game. Even though Indy lost that game to the Texans, Anthony Richardson played very well. And, there's reason to believe that the Colts could definitely make the playoffs. You have a case that they could probably even win the AFC South with Houston. I mean, sure, Houston may have won the first game, but they still have another matchup to go. And that matchup with Houston the second time around could, for all intents and purposes, decide the AFC South. So the Colts, they're 0-1, but they do have hope on the horizon. You fall to 0-2 in this game. Again, it's two teams that can't afford to start 0-2. You fall to 0-2, your chances of making the playoffs plummet. And I mean, they fall hard. So, Green Bay, they really need to run the ball well with Josh Jacobs in this game. But, that can only get you for so long because eventually Malik Willis is going to have to show what he can do to be a backup. So I'm going to go with Indianapolis to win this one simply because they're healthier and because I like what I saw from Anthony Richardson. Sorry, Packers. If Jordan Love was healthy, I'd probably pick you guys, but sorry, it is what it is. I'm going to go with Indy to get the job done over Green Bay. Later slate of games on Sunday, and we got my personal trap game of the week. As it is, the Los Angeles Rams heading to Arizona to play the Cardinals. Again, this is my trap game. Here's why. First of all, the Cardinals, they may not be a good team, but the Cardinals will give you a fight every single game. And they showed that last year when they pulled off a couple of upsets. And they could have beaten Buffalo if not for Kyler Murray missing Marvin Harrison Jr., who was wide open. But still, I think the Cardinals did enough to win. It's just that they couldn't stop Josh Allen. But Arizona, they're a feisty bunch despite them not being the most talented team in the league. And I think that they will definitely give the Rams all they have. But do you take a look at the Rams? They're 0-1, and it feels like you would have a legit argument at hitting the panic button if the Rams fall to 0-2. Because Puka Nacua was just put on IR, and the Rams are now also dealing with O-line injuries as well. So, yeah, Matthew Stafford is really going to have to lead the troops right here, and that defense cannot collapse the way they did in overtime against the Lions on Sunday night. I understand Detroit's one of the best teams in the NFL, but man, that defense just prolapsed at the worst time, and because of that, the Lions walked them off in overtime. Rams never had a chance to you know, the Rams never had a chance in overtime, never saw the ball again. And now going up against a division rival in Arizona, who's, a scrappy bunch. I don't know. It's not looking good right now for the Rams. So this is why this is my trap game of the week. You can't take the Cardinals lightly, and you got to take into consideration the injuries that the Rams have. Because of that, I'm going to say the Cardinals get the job done. This was another game that I was really close to making my upset, but after hearing all the points and after looking at the injury report, I really don't know if you can call this an upset. I think Arizona should be favored in this game, but I will make it my trap game. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals to get the job done over the Rams in week 2, dropping the Rams to a big 0-2 start. Next, we got my game. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Denver Broncos. This one is in Denver. I'm going to try to keep it short here because there's a lot of stuff I'm going to say in my pregame. So the Steelers notoriously have a hard time in Denver. I will say that. We never have good luck in Denver. The last time the Steelers won in Denver, you got to go back to a Monday night game all the way back in 2009. It's been a long time since we won in Denver. Everything from the Tebow game to Fitzgerald Toussaint's fumble to the 70s. The Broncos were one of the few teams that gave the Steelers a hard time in the 70s. We just don't have good luck in Denver. Even 2018, when we had that inexcusable loss to them, we just have a hard time in Denver. But I will say this. Yeah, we won against Atlanta by kicking 6 field goals and the defense just absolutely wreaking havoc all over the field, and TJ Watt being a beast as always. 2 interceptions on Kirk Cousins. It's a win. You take it. But if you think that you can win like that for the rest of the season, you're sadly mistaken. Mike Tomlin, in his press game conference, announced that Justin Fields, well, he didn't say that Justin Fields is going to be the starter. He said the Steelers are preparing as if Justin Fields was the starter. So take that however you want. I'm just assuming that Justin Fields is going to start this game against Denver. Even though I think it should be Russell Wilson. Why? Because Russell Wilson knows Vance Joseph's defense and he knows the entire Broncos personnel, seeing that he's been there for 2 years. It's just that simple. So it is what it is right there. You got to score touchdowns. You got to take advantage of opportunities. You can't miss guys, and you have to be accurate with throws. Like I said, I'm going to get more of this in my pregame that I hope to have out by the end of the week. As for the Denver Broncos, they're 0-1. They lost to the Seahawks. As I said earlier, 26-20. That's not indicative to how that game went. Denver should have gotten blown out in that game, if not lost by at least 10 points. The Broncos didn't play well. And I'm not going to crucify Bo Nix for his debut because it's his rookie debut. I'm going to lay off on him in a little bit, but Bo Nix should have had easily 4 or 5 interceptions in that game. The Broncos just didn't play well. I mean, there were times where Denver looked like they could pull off the upset, but when the Broncos had 2 safeties in that game, yeah, that's right. At one point, Denver had 10 points, and 4 of those 10 points were from safeties. So take that however you want. Go figure that out. But the point is, the Broncos just didn't play well. And I really don't know if it's just going to be an experience for Bo Nix, if he just needs to marinate a little bit more, or if he just caught the Seahawks defense on a good day. I will say this, though. You're throwing a rookie quarterback into the fire by playing an on-charging defense that creates a lot of pressure, creates a lot of sacks, will make you work in the pocket, and can come up with big turnovers. That is a very big concerning factor right there if you're a Bronco fan. Plus, even though Mike Tomlin has not done it in recent years, Mike Tomlin has a really good track record of playing rookie quarterbacks. I know he got his doors blown off by CJ Stroud last year in his rookie year, but Bo Nix doesn't strike me as that kind of guy that CJ Stroud is. So there's a lot to consider right here, but I'm going to go with the Steelers to improve to 2-0. Again, it's the early part of the schedule. The later part of the schedule for us is when we're really going to be tested. You got to get these early wins as often as you can. You got to pick up, you got to take advantage of the early part of your schedule being very winnable. And I think the Broncos are a very beatable team. I'm going to go with the Steelers to get the job done over the Broncos here to improve to 2-0. Then we got what a lot of people's game of the week would be for this week. I disagree. We got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs going at it in Arrowhead. Like I said, I disagree with this being my game of the week because the Bengals, they just did not look good against the Patriots at all. They were shut down by that defense. Joe Burrow played really poorly, got sacked a couple of times, just couldn't get anything going offensively. And the Bengals, like I said earlier, this is just a recurring theme for them. They get off to slow starts at the beginning of the season, and then they pick it up as the weeks go by. As a matter of fact, the last 2 seasons, the Bengals have started 0-2. You know, so can they do it a third time? It's looking very possible right now because the Chiefs got a win against the Ravens. Was it a dominant win? No, I wouldn't say it was dominant, but they got a win over them. Patrick Mahomes, there were some times where he struggled, but I really don't know if the Bengals defense is that kind of defense that the Ravens have. It just doesn't strike me in that way. Xavier Worthy, great young target for Mahomes early on. Buffalo, they got to be kicking themselves with that trade. It's just looking worse and worse the more productive that Xavier Worthy looks. You know? So there you go right there. The last couple matchups between these two have been 3-point games exactly. So I have no doubt that it's going to be a close game because that's just what these teams do. They play close games with one another. But again, similar to the Ravens, like I said earlier, the Chiefs are also well rested. They also have 10 days rest, but they have a bigger advantage than the Ravens because the Ravens, they didn't get to stay home. They had to travel back home. The Chiefs, they don't got to go anywhere. They had their home opener against the Ravens in week 1, and they got to stay at home for 10 days to practice, to be well rested, essentially a mini bye to play the Bengals. And like I always say, I always lean towards the team that had the days of rest coming off a Thursday game. I'm going Kansas City to improve to 2-0, dropping the Bengals to 0-2. Give me the Chiefs to get the job done over the Bengals. Then we got Sunday Night Football. Check your local listings, as this is a pretty strange Sunday night game right here. We got the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans going at it in Houston, as I guess I understand the premise of this matchup being at two young quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and CJ Stroud. They were it's a matchup of the two of the last first overall picks in the draft. So I guess that's the premise. But I mean, come on, Bears, Texans. This is a 1 o'clock slate game. Anyway, the Bears got the job done over Tennessee, but like I said, very uninspiring when the defense won them that game. Caleb Williams didn't really do anything. And similar to Jaden Daniels with Washington, I'm not going to kill Caleb Williams because he's a rookie, but really all he did was just that 2-point conversion, and that's it. So the Bears are 1-0, but it's a really empty 1-0 in my opinion. Then you got the Houston Texans. They're 1-0. They won a slugfest over the Colts as CJ Stroud kept doing his thing. Threw a dime at one point for a big touchdown gain. And it looks like the Texans are living up to advertisement as being an AFC favorite. So there you go right there with those headlines right there. It's just going to be a matchup of two quarterbacks that have supposedly bright futures in the league. I'm sold on CJ Stroud. I don't know about Caleb Williams yet. It's still way too early. But I'm going to go Houston to get the job done here over the Bears. I just think head and shoulders, Houston's the better team. And the Bears, I mean, like I said, they got the job done over Tennessee, but the Titans choked that game more than the Bears won it. And I'm going to go Houston to get the job done over the Bears here. And wrapping up week 2, we got Monday Night Football in Philadelphia. We got the Falcons and the Eagles going at it. So once again, Kirk Cousins playing the Eagles in a primetime game. That just seems to be a regular theme now with the NFL. They got to get Kirk Cousins playing the Eagles in a primetime game in some way. The Falcons are 0-1. Kirk Cousins had a passing touchdown to Kyle Pitts, but the Falcons lost to a team that could just kick 6 field goals. So, like I keep saying about Kirk Cousins, when it comes to him playing high-octane defenses, he just does not play well. And that showed again. Kirk Cousins was no match for TJ Watt. He threw 2 interceptions. TJ had a walk-off sack on him, and Atlanta's 0-1. Now, I think it's still way too early to hit the panic button if you're a Falcon fan because it's just week 1. But I'm telling you, if Kirk Cousins keeps this up, it's going to be a long year for Atlanta. Cousins typically beats up on bad teams, so Atlanta's not going to be terrible, but Kirk Cousins never really had a high ceiling. You know, he's a good quarterback, but he doesn't strike me as a winner. He never did. Like, if the Falcons are trailing and the Falcons need a game-tying touchdown or they need a game-winning touchdown, Falcon fans, be honest. Do you trust Kirk Cousins in that situation? No. He never was that kind of quarterback. But then you take a look at Philadelphia. Saquon Barkley, phenomenal first game in Philly. He had 4 touchdowns against Green Bay, and he just ran all over them, and Jalen Hurts had a really good game. However, I will say this about Kirk Cousins. Philly's defense, especially their passing defense, is very suspect. And it just seems to be a continuation of it. Jordan Love had a respectable game until he got hurt. And Kirk Cousins, like I said, he's capable of lighting up stat sheets. So it's going to remind me a lot of last year's matchup between the two when they had a primetime game where the Eagles looked like they dominate them and then the Vikings came back and fought back. But I don't know about this time around. I just don't trust Philly's defense. So I do think Atlanta can make it a good game. But in the end, I'm going to go with the better team here. And to me, that is the Philadelphia Eagles. I just think the Eagles are better offensively and they just have more of an identity. And if the Falcons can't stop Saquon Barkley, because they did allow Justin Fields to run for some chunks and they did have trouble stopping Jalen Warren and Najee Harris at times. So if they can't stop that threat right there for the Steelers, and they're now playing a team that's also well rested in Philadelphia because they played on Friday and they get 10 days rest as well, and they are at home with a running back who had his best game in years with 4 touchdowns, it's going to be a long night for Atlanta if they can't stop that. I'm going to go with the Eagles to get the job done over the Falcons. And that'll do it. Those are my week 2 picks of the 2024 season. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And I am Mac, checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.